Sky, hi.
Hello, hello.
How are you, buddy? You okay?
I'm fantastic. Yes,
Fantastic.
it's a beautiful day, and actually, it's a gray, horrible day in Tampa, Florida. But what are you gonna do?
Can you
You know,
do me a little favor before I do your introduction? Can you just look to your right for me? Just a second. Doesn't he look like Robbie Williams?
There's a touch of the Robbie Williams there, definitely.
swing while you're winning. Is that what he says?
That's the one.
That's Robbie. Well, a young Robbie, obviously, not the one that he is now.
I actually don't know what he looks like anymore. I've never been as fit as he was when he was at his prime. I mean, come on, that guy was a good-looking broke. Like he.
You could open supermarkets with that look, mate. If ever, took your fancy.
Where's this going, Scott? What
I
sort of
don't really
podcast
know.
I
was this?
appreciate that. Robbie Williams, that's not one that I've gotten. I usually get because you normally have a mustache,
Do
and
we
so I
escape?
I shave it off every time I get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube as like a thing.
Oh,
So
that's
I just passed
That's nice.
I just passed another 1,000, so off it came. Thank you.
well done. Well done.
Yes.
I just love the fact that you open up with the introduction. How are you? Fantastic. You don't get that in the UK, do you? Yeah.
What's that like?
What's that like? It's so boring. Just fine, thanks.
How would you like to introduce yourself? I would say that you're a vegan activist. You do billions of podcasts, and you're currently, in a good way, and you currently are doing work with, and now I say Peter, but I think you say Peta.
No, I say Peta. The
you say
normal
Peter?
people, people
Normal.
generally say Peta. Yeah.
Peter is what I say.
Yeah. And you have been for probably about what, 6 months maybe or something like that, and you've been traveling up and down the country with a chicken truck, right?
Yes, well, it's two different tours. I have been on the road for 6 months, but it's been two different tours. The current tour is the Hell on Wheels chicken truck, right, where we take a truck that looks like it's a live transport of chickens with the walls taken off, so you can actually see the bloody animals and how they. It's a bit shocking for people to see visually, but in addition to the visual component, there is an audio part that maybe you don't know about, where it plays the sounds of real birds with the subliminal message looped in every 10 seconds that just says "Go vegan."
Nice.
But you can't hear that part, but they tell me it's there.
Was that
Nice.
all inspired by the Damien Hirst truck with the cuddly toys peering out the slats of?
Was that Damien Hirst? I thought that was
It was
I don't think that was
Banksy.
Damien. That was Banksy. Yeah.
It was Banksy.
Damien Hirst, Banksy, Robin Williams, and Robbie Williams, and also Joe Rogan, and I've been calling him Josh Rogan. So maybe, I'm just getting too old for this.
Josh.
Once you're over 50, Scott, it's all downhill.
Oh, God damn it! I'm right behind you. I can see your taillights.
Oh yeah. What was that inspired at all by Banksy, or just?
I don't know what the inspiration actually was. I know that it's like one of Ingrid Newkirk's favorite, so I'm really honored to be a part of it. I'm having a good time. Right now, we're driving across the most ridiculous. I'm driving down the perimeter of the most ridiculous appendage of America. I'm in Florida, driving down the Gulf Coast and then up the I'll be coming back on the East Coast on the other side of the tour. So, but I came from Norfolk and came down, and I'm coming around the horn, so to speak, at the finish line. So it's been a wonderful and honoring and fulfilling kind of experience where I get to talk to people, but the truck does most of the talking, and it does most of the outreach for me, because it's such an impactful visual.
Yeah.
And are you touring campuses? Is that right? Or you
the first 3 months was campuses. Yeah. So it's difficult for people because I've been doing 6 months in a stretch. I'm almost I will have done 6 months in about a month and a half. So the first 3 months was one called the Abduction Tour, and that was it was a campus tour whereby we visited campuses with a virtual reality lab studio inside the truck, and then we would actually be on campus on most of these, And students and community members would get on the truck, and they would put the goggles on, and they would meet their new friends. And it's a really interesting kind of disquieting experience, because they have this eye contact with you when you're in virtual space. And so you start empathizing with the humans, and then aliens abduct you, and they start doing experiments on your friends, and you know that you're next. And at the end, it's like, this is happening on your campus. These experiments are exactly what's happening to animals right here, right now.
Yeah,
put yourself in their positions. And so that was a wonderful, that was actually much more conversational too. I got to talk with people afterwards, like, how did you feel about that? And give them some facts and figures about vivisection.
Yeah, so that was very much focused on the sort of exploitation and experimentation on lab animals. So this other tour then is more around the sort of the farming of well, chickens, presumably in this case.
Well, yes. So like with the chicken truck, with Hell on Wheels, I actually go to chicken themed restaurants you probably are familiar with, like Chick-fil-A, or ones you might have heard of. I don't think they have Chick-fil-A in the UK yet.
We got KFC.
So I don't go to KFCs.
Oh, yes.
I don't go to KFC right now, but I do go to some of the other big ones that you'd have heard of. KFC is actually, I think they're trying to get some more vegan options in their stores. So like, I've been told not to do KFC right now, but
they have a vegan option in the UK. Yeah.
They do. I don't go to fast food restaurants, to be honest with you, but I do like sticking it to fast food restaurants that sell dead chickens and dead animals. So I go to Buffalo Wild Wings, which is a big one out here. These big chains, but also local ones too that are local favorites. So it's because sometimes these local favorites are the ones that will get the press out to report on what we're doing. And sometimes those ones are the ones that really need to be reminded of what's happening to these animals. 10 billion animals, 10 billion chickens a year, 10 billion chickens who wanted to live every year in America are killed. That's about 1 million an hour, every hour of every day in America. That's how many chickens we're killing.
It's staggering. What's the interesting? Obviously, local businesses. You mentioned local press. What's the response to the local press, do you find, in the coverage, given that you're, picketing local businesses?
It's a mixed bag. Sometimes, like any of these things, apathy is the worst one. No press.
Silence.
Silence is the one that I don't like. But when we do get the press, the response is usually, what you'd probably expect. They're curious. They want to know why we're here, why this, what, they're the same kind of faces that you normally, if you've done any kind of activism or outreach, same kind of attitudes. And also the press will sometimes misrepresent it, which is sometimes disheartening and a little bit eye-opening, that when the press just straight up says, like, we were at a place once, we were at Chick-fil-A, and we were handing out vegan starter kits, and it's like when they remember the old days when they used to have a newspaper box where you open the little hatch door and you pull out the newspaper and you close the hatch, so it was like we have a device that's similar to that with vegan starter kits, with, of course, we don't charge, and people were taking them, and we were giving out a couple of, and the news was like, no one cared, no one took any of these, and I'm like, we have photographic evidence of this happening while you were standing there, like, you're in the shot, there's someone taking this out in the shot, but you misrepresented what was going. So that's a little, but we like the press. We like that we get people thinking about the animals. It's not about my ego at the end of the day. It's about these animals and what they're going through. And even when my ego is bruised a little bit by the press,
I think one thing in this game, you gotta have a thick skin.
Right, precisely. And also always remind yourself, like I always tell, because I talk to a lot of young advocates and activists, and I tell them, bring it back to every time you're in doubt. Well, I don't know what to say, Sky. I don't know what to say about XYZ. Bring it back to the animals every single time. That's your anchor point. Just bring it back to them. And that's what I have to do to try to recenter myself too.
It's very true. And I think it hadn't really occurred to me when I invited you two on, which is painfully obvious to me now, but what you're doing with taking a very visual truck and VR and all that kind of stuff and the kits, and that's all to, like you say, you're zeroing down on it's about the welfare of the animal. Now, Joanne Lefson and Pigcasso, I asked her about this, about the, you know, the underlying message that she was trying to convey, and Joanne, I'm going to speak for you, Joanne, and I want you to speak. Obviously, is that you were more let the work speak for itself, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so what Sky High from Cape Town. Yeah, so
All the way
I
from
remember I
Cape
actually studied in the States. I started off in Virginia for my first year, and then ended up in Texas actually. And I remember I was a kid at as a freshman in Virginia, sticking all those stickers from every single group in the whole planet, really, including Peta, over dormitory windows and dormitory corridors and everything. And I remember I was actually on a golf scholarship, and my coach came to me after a couple of months and said, like, basically, Joan, if you want to stay on this golf team, you're going to have to stop this kind of stuff, And it was kind of weird. I was like wild abandoned. I didn't even think that there was any sort of like anything awkward or strange. It was like something that came so natural for me to do. And it was the first time I realized actually there's a lot of resistance to this. I did tone that down. I stayed on the golf team. I did transfer to Texas, which became even more challenging, as you can imagine, in the deep South. A little vegan girl, on the golf team. That was quite interesting.
Yeah, in Virginia,
but
they
anyway,
don't even consider themselves the South.
And I was really in love with this guy. I thought he was going to be like my forever, until we went on the first date and he had a steak and he learned that I was vegan, and it was like over. But anyway, it's worked out quite well not having him in my life, I think. So moving on rapidly to the current situation. So I just so how I feel about the way animals are raised and how they're treated and stuff is highly obviously highly disturbing for me, and very hard to, even for me, it's hard to keep current with what's going on, because I really get deeply affected by it. And I just I think I took it definitely a softer approach, I would say, a highly creative approach, but a gentler approach in maybe trying to draw people in, as opposed to going out and obviously showing them really what's going on. A lot of people run away because it's just inconvenient for them to know the truth. So somehow in all of this, I guess I just found a different kind of niche to sort of to share exactly the same passion, but in a different kind of way, to just create awareness in a, I suppose, when I say inspiring way, what I mean is it's very hard to show footage and that is inspiring, right? Because it's so saddening and so disheartening. I mean, a lot of people can't even watch it. Even I struggle to watch it, and I know what's going on. So somewhere in all of that, it was really just, I mean, Pigcasso wasn't, it was just fortunate that dog adoption was always my thing, and I was starting the center in a beautiful area outside Cape Town, and I had this extra bit of land. And what inspired the whole idea of having some farm animals just on a very small basis was the original plan, where people could just come and, hang out with a cow and play some music and all of this. But what was so interesting, and I mean, we know the story, so I'll try and keep it short, because we're sitting in the four of us know the situation. I mean, when I took my dog around the world in 2009 to inspire dog adoption, and I came back to South Africa and I would give fundraising talks with all the dog shelters, and it was always the same. I would talk about going, up the Great Wall of China with my dog, and going into China, and every time after the lunch break, there would be a Q&A, and all these animal lovers would say, "Wow, Joe, it's so amazing, but like, why did you go to China? Oh my God, they eat dogs in China. How did you go there? They are like sadistic over there." And this was all these amazing, smart, intelligent animal lovers would be sitting there basically eating a cow or a pig sandwich, and asking this question and not having any actual understanding that they were actually doing the same thing, they wouldn't even, that this cultural conditioning was just so
strong,
like unconscious. It was like, so from that conversation, I remember thinking, one day I'm gonna get a way to sort of to try and connect this message. And really, 10 years later, I had that 7 years later, I had that opportunity to develop this farm. And I would say that, of course, yeah. I mean, this pig had to would have to want to paint, because I was never. It was going to be a sanctuary first. It wasn't for entertainment. It wasn't for. As a laugh or anything like this. So as long as a pig was willing and able and wanting to paint and stuff, then I figured that this could not only be a great way to sustain the sanctuary, but also would be such a unique story. It could inspire people to actually come learn about why she's painting and ultimately where she's from. And hopefully in that conversation, I could either the penny would just make people think differently about pigs, and then perhaps start a journey of their own to discovering where these animals are actually raised from. And that's really been the journey. And I really, it's an absolute gift. I mean, I have people that come into the sanctuary on a daily basis that want to know, where does Pigcasso come from? You know, why the sanctuary? And I'm thinking, I stand there going, this is such an incredible gift that people are actually coming to me to ask questions about a factory farmed pig. I mean, I mean, it's incredible. Swiss people, Indian, some Indians came in the other day wearing a Swatch watch and stuff. They came all the way to South Africa just to meet a pig. And I often say, you guys are here to meet a pig. I mean, for me, that's like amazing that they would come all that way. I mean, I would fly maybe to New York to see Bruce Springsteen. I mean, they're Bruce Springsteen is like this big pig in South Africa. So it's really a gift. And I mean, I wrote about it actually in the book that actually just came out a couple of months ago. Rich, we spoke about this earlier. I mean, we have kids that come in there. And in fact, it's funny. People always say, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. You've got to get all the kids in here. And I always go, well, actually, I need the parents in here. The kids come in and they play with the animals. They love the animals. They get it. It's the parents that need to, that teach the kids to numb themselves and not even think about what they're actually eating, you know. My parents included, you know, I grew up eating animals and raising all this money for shelter animals and eating a different species every time I was raising money for the animals, but I didn't know better because I wasn't even thinking about it. And you know, the other day, actually was maybe a year ago, I had this little kid come and he was such a cute boy. He must have been about 10 and he was in love with Pigcasso. And I remember I sort of said to him, and sort of after a couple of minutes talking, I said, you know, so, hey, you know, what did you have for breakfast? And I could just see the parents go, oh my God, no. I mean, like in fear that their son was going to stop eating a pig, you know. And I kind of winked at the parents and I said, so the kid said, I had some bacon and eggs. And I said, you had a little bit of Pigcasso, you know. And he looked at me completely confused, a 10-year-old boy. And I said, yeah, a little bit of Pigcasso. And he said, no, but a piece of bacon is small and long and like this, and Pigcasso is so big or whatever. And I said, yeah, well, it's actually the same thing, you know, kind of like sort of half, kind of, you know, not making him too, just a bit lightly before the parents like took him away. And the penny dropped and this kid got it. In that second, he got it. And I was actually quite moved. I'm still emotional talking about it because, you know, people will say, what kind of difference do you really make? And Sky, this is the same for you as well. I mean, it's like that little kid, if maybe that's a kid that grows up to become the leading advocate that changes the world for animals when he grows up. You don't know what impact that moment's going to have for that kid. And you know, so anyway, the point is I have, through Pigcasso doing such a unique project, I have the ability to, where people actually come and ask me, and it's incredible. What I also like, I have to just say, is that generally speaking, Pigcasso always gets a lot of news and awareness when she sells a painting for a certain amount. And we're actually about to sell a painting for a new record in the UK, by the way. I can't say too much about it, but it's probably going to happen in the next week. And the press are always like, it's always about how much the painting went for. And I also love that. It's not about, oh yeah, it's a lot of money and stuff. I mean, the money goes to a great cause, and I also support other charities, including my dog adoption initiative in South Africa. But the fact that, yeah, this pig makes more than the average artist. I mean, Pigcasso is one of the top artists, actually, if you look at what she's actually raised. And people can't get their head around the fact that a pig is actually, that people will pay for pigs' art, and it's a testament to their creativity and their intelligence. And I love, and no one can, I have a painting that she did called Penguin, and it's almost identical to Pablo Picasso's Penguin. And I swear, if you Google the two, it's like almost an identical painting. And when people say, oh, it's animal art, it doesn't count, I just have to put those two paintings together. And they cannot say that Picasso is nonsense, because they, at the same time, they would have to say that Pablo Picasso is also nonsense, because the paintings are so similar. So I get a chance to sort of like to discuss these things, and I think the penny does drop. And again, we just all do it in our own way, and I'm just grateful for this incredible pig that is really not done so well just for the awareness side, but also raised a lot of money for all the right reasons, and that continues to attract people to ask questions about what they're eating and to inspire a kind of more sustainable world.
I think there's something really interesting you said there about there's a really neat thread there about Picasso and Pigcasso. So Picasso, I mean, I'm paraphrasing really badly, but he basically said that he spent most of his adult life trying to create like a child, with a childlike quality, because he felt that was the most pure form of art. And then you've got people that love Pigcasso because it's like the penguin in that example, and yet you've also got this thread of the importance of children in all of this as well. I mean, Sky, do you through the campaigns that you've been doing, have you found or what have the reactions been like from younger people as well? Because from my point of view, I go through peaks and troughs, as I'm sure we all do, about just giving up on adults because they just seem so blinkered and unwilling to change. But children just get it, like Joanne alluded to earlier, just get it immediately. Like, well, I don't want to eat that thing I love. But
children, I mean, children aren't reluctant to share their points of view either. They're like the zero filter effect is really, I wish we could all talk like that sometimes. And sometimes I'm terrified that if anybody, thank God adults don't talk like that. But, there are times when children are like, well, I think we should be making killing animals illegal. You're like, thank you. They get their
people are running for president,
right? Exactly. On their own, they've gotten there, and they don't qualify it like, oh well, what about the nutrition, and what about they don't have all of these what about. They don't try to gish gallop you. They ask you why. They ask you, and then that's all they really ask is why, which is the question we should all be asking, right? There's this whole Steve from Vegan Muscle is always saying that he has why vegans and how vegans, and why vegans are the real deal. They're the ones that they're answering the question why, because animals have rights whether we like it or not. That's it. Well, the how vegans are, the macrobiotics of the HVLs and the HCl, all that stuff. That's like,
and it's all ultra processed, and where do you get your protein? Where do you get your iron? Oh my God.
Right. All that extra stuff. I kind of glaze over. Like, I've been vegan for a long time, and so I know a lot of that stuff now. But like, when people start talking about it, it's like, that is not interesting to me whatsoever. I'm trying to end slavery over here. I'm trying to fight oppression and violence, big things. I'm not trying to lower your cholesterol. I'm not trying to get you to live longer or get you to run a marathon faster or any of that stuff. So I feel like kids, they don't come to it with the how at all. They don't care how, because to them the world's still a big sandbox. They think shit's still, that anything's possible still. They're like, well, why? What do you mean we're killing animals? Why?
I looked a bit on the sort of the dogs and pigs piece from what you were saying, Joe, because I think South Korea have just in the last few days announced that they're going to impose a ban on dog meat sales in South Korea, which is great. And there was a wonderful quote it's actually a BBC News article from an old chap, because it's often the older generations of South Korea who eat dog meat, as per the conversation we've just been having now. It's the younger generations that are driving the change. And one of the older people was saying, well, if you're going to ban dog meat, you better start banning beef as well, hadn't you? Ironically, and it's simply because, absolutely. You may have said that in an ironic way, but you hit the nail on the head.
Now that you mention it.
And also the idea of dogs and pigs, I think, is really interesting, because many studies, of course, suggest dogs are at least, if not more intelligent than dogs. So pigs more intelligent than dogs. And yet we compartmentalize. I often do this when I give talks. We compartmentalize animals in different ways. You've got wildlife you know, and most of us are concerned about native wildlife and want to do something to save it. If there's a crisis, we'll put food out for hedgehogs or companion animals. Woe betide anyone who mistreats a dog or a cat, you know, particularly in the UK, people are up in arms. But farmed animals, although these are incredibly intelligent, more intelligent, emotional creatures, we're brought up to view them through a lens of food, and therefore we've got this framing that we grow up with. And what I wanted to sort of ask the pair of you actually, as activists, is first of all, you know, there was presumably a point, if you haven't been vegan all your lives, that you became vegetarian and or then vegan or straight to veganism. What was the moment? Was there a sort of light bulb moment for the pair of you, or was it a gradual sort of accumulation of knowledge?
I grew up in a violent household. I was always against violence and I was against oppression. I felt like that tyranny was something that I took very seriously. The ideas of freedom. And when I started, so I went vegetarian really early, and then I went back and forth like a lot of vegetarians do over the years. And when I went to college, I was thinking even more heavily I was learning about philosophy and ethics and logic. And I was going, my whole normative philosophical theory, right? And I'm like, well, I'm just against violence and oppression. That's it. And I was trying to think about things like, well, I'll go to this special cheesemonger that only gets his cheese from this farm where he knows the names of all the cows. And I was trying to play that game like a lot of people do.
I think Sky's glitched.
Go
on, Joe. Was there a moment for you?
Yeah, actually, yeah. For me, I remember very well. I've been saving shelter dogs my whole life. I was actually going to join Greenpeace when I was 10. I had every single Greenpeace sticker. There was a dolphin action protective group in Cape Town. I was so involved with all the stuff. Like I was definitely going to be doing something radical for animals one day. And I was doing all of this while eating. I loved ham and cheese sandwiches. I mean, this was like my daily diet from a shop called Juicy Lucy that used to do fresh juice and these sandwiches. And it really was. I think I was 14, maybe 15, and I was my best friend at school. We were sitting one day having in break, and I was having my typical Juicy Lucy sandwich. And she just said to me out of the blue, she said, "Joe, you do all this fundraising for the SPCA, all this stuff for animals and stuff, and then you're sitting and eating like a pig sandwich. Like, wow, what are you doing?" Wow. And I tell you what to at least I can say to it was like, I literally just said, "Hey, you got a point," and that was it. It was like the simplest thing I've ever done. And you know something, I never missed that sandwich after that conversation. Wow. It was so clear. Like I couldn't believe I hadn't even considered that. This is the point. I couldn't believe that I had not even considered that. And I'd been raising money for animals, saving the whales, going to work at the shelters every single weekend. And I had never, not even anyone in my animal circle at the dog shelters, at any of those things, had ever even brought this up to even make me more aware, knowing that I would want to hear that message. And it's always like, what is everyone so afraid of? You know, what is, it's like, you know, I think Sky was saying it earlier and stuff. Why do we have to always feel like why isn't everyone just saying, "You hero, thanks for saying this message," you know, like you would do if you were helping any oppressed human being? Why is it always you feel like you have to fight it, like you're trying to promote something that isn't right yourself? It's just
it's complex, isn't it? There's a lot of human psychology under there. And I think there's a lot of distrust. I think there's at its simplest level, there's a lot of people who just love the taste of meat and don't want it. You know, you will snatch that steak from my cold dead hand, literally the hill I'm going to die on. And yeah, you can give me all of the animal cruelty images in the world and I ain't shifting. And I think there's an element of, for that proportion of people, just not wasting time. You could waste an awful lot of energy and effort trying to convert those people, when actually there's a much broader group of people who are actually probably more willing to listen if you can get the messages across in the right way. And the rest of the people, you probably just have to wait for nature to take its course in the nicest possible way.
Sad,
I think we've made an executive decision, Scott, to go back to one guest.
I think so. Yeah, I've just messaged him on
Oh my God,
WhatsApp.
pressure.
So, Joe, we've got another 20 questions for you here.
I
think I'm tired now. No. Okay.
Yeah, I think we
really at the end anyway. So it's been really. I think pairing you together, even though he did have to disappear, maybe his battery went or something. But I think that you do make two really great interviewees, I think, or guests, because your approach is so different, but the message is exactly the same, just delivered in different ways. You did kind of allude earlier to the fact that you've got this painting that's going up to have a record sale. What things are, in your diary now, sort of for January, let's say, that people would like to hear about?
Oh, well, yeah. So besides breaking the existing Picasso world record for the highest price, which would again make a statement for a farm animal, which is a big deal, and get some press time for a living farm animal, which, let's be honest, is usually an advertisement in the newspaper for a local butchery or something.
What's
we
the
have
current
Dr.
highest
Jane
price,
Goodall.
Joe? Sorry. What's the current highest price?
20, I think it was £20,000, which was at the time $25,000. So
Wow.
this would be going for just 10% more than that record. So that would be that's a good one. And beginning of March, we got Dr. Jane Goodall coming to speak. Actually, she's coming to spend a couple of days at the sanctuary. She loves Picasso.
Wow.
I don't know
That's
if you
cool.
know, but she actually her whole career was inspired by a pig that she habituated is the right word. I think she was 9 or 10 years old, she used to go out into the British countryside and she used to watch these wild pigs. And day after day, she would try and get one to come and eat an apple from her hand. And eventually one did. And that was actually a pig that inspired her whole career. And that's why she has such an affinity for pigs. And Picasso Picasso's a big fan of her, and she's a big fan of Picasso. So it's a wonderful union. So she's actually going to come and speak at the sanctuary. We're going to start promoting that at the end of this week, because we're just finalizing the details. And she'll actually be staying in the barn. It's actually a very nice room. And the pigs and the donkeys and all of it will be below her. So I think she'll have a wonderful time there, and it'll be just a fantastic opportunity to raise funds for her foundation, which is Roots and Shoots. And also, of course, she will bring in the farmed animal situation for the audience, which will be great. And then really, I mean, from Picasso's point of view, we just want to keep giving her the best possible treatment to see if she can get better. And her art still, she's got a big exhibition in China that's making its rounds. It's been in Shanghai, it's now going to be Beijing, and then eventually Singapore, Japan, and the whole of Asia. Fantastic exhibition. I have to really give credit to the Chinese team. It's an exhibition that could be at the top gallery at Art Basel in Switzerland. It could own the show. It's just so inspiring and so professionally done, and really again makes a statement for art that's made, by a farm animal. And that's always what we're just trying to make that statement about the value, adding value to a farm animal. And yeah, so those are the immediate things. As I say, and of course the documentary's coming out. So we're going to premiere the first the viewing of the documentary. It's been a while now, so it's actually we're going to premiere it on the same evening of Dr. Goodall's talk. So she will give a talk in the early evening, and then for those that still want more, we're going to show that documentary. And it's a very special work of art. I have to say, it's not what most people will think. It's not me going, hey, I rescued this pig. And it's really Picasso at her stage of her life, where she is right now, where clearly she's struggling, looking back on her life and what she's done in a very, I would say, slow pace, but very emotionally inspired way, which is very touching and moving, and a great celebration of her life, actually. So very excited about that. And of course, we're going to, just like you, we're going to try and get her into all these shows and get a couple of good endorsements. And we want to see her on the pink carpet next year, and also on on the East Coast. I mean, I know California well. I know that road. I know that carpet. Okay, so that's the plan. And again, really just to a different way to inspire awareness for what she's doing, and to challenge the status quo, obviously not just on art, but also to ask those kind of questions. Where does our food come from? What is the meaning of art, by the way? Because these are all things to make people rethink about their conditioning that they've never actually been asked to reconsider again. And hopefully in that equation, the penny drops somewhere, and a journey of their own continues, so that's really the dream here. And that's quite a lot for this year, so we'll see.
It's the story, though. The story it ignites so much fascination as soon as you simply explain what you and Pigcasso are doing together. And then if you want to go down that journey of animal rights in more detail, you can, but it just on the surface of just this amazing art that she creates. And it is.
And Scott, if I can also just say like a couple of things just for anyone that's listening. People will say, well, how do people actually spend that kind of money on what makes a Picasso, valuable? And I always say, well, if you give 8 billion people on the planet a paintbrush, they're all going to pick it up and paint something. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. Who knows? But if you gave 8 billion, thank goodness there aren't 8 billion pigs on the planet the way they're raised today. But if you gave 8 million pigs on the planet a paintbrush today, there's only one that's going to pick it up and paint something. We humans try and we humans are always trying to be different and trying to stand out from the crowd and stuff, but actually we're all kind of the same. And here in the midst of all of it is a true original. I mean, Picasso really is a true original. So I love the way she kind of is also there to actually make us reflect on our own humanity and the things that we do. I mean, there's some gallerists or art critics that might say, well, first of all, they won't even discuss an animal's painting, but is art, but also that the fact that, well, they think that you have to be schooled, you have to have had certain degrees. For humans as well, you have to have gone through this school, that would to even be considered an artist. And that's what I also love about Picasso. I love the fact she didn't go to art school, because I think we are learned, just like we learn to eat animals, even if we love animals, we are learned a certain style. We take influence from different artists. And then the great artists, I mean, who knows that that's really their art style? They've learned a behavior and they've incorporated in their style. And so is it really their own style? Picasso's style is completely her own, and she has a very creative style. That's why she sold a lot of artwork, and she does have a creative talent. You can see it. It's not just boring art. This is creative movements. In fact, there's one.
Lovely.
So I love the fact that that I don't have to often say too much. She really is just from what she's done and who she is. She makes those statements, and few people can really say yeah but it's like, yeah, well, she's and I get a lot of, my heart's very warm when I see what she's done and how she can answer some of those questions sometimes without even saying anything.
Exactly. The purest form of communication, isn't it, really? Well, thank you for letting us know what your plans are, and introducing, hopefully, to a new audience, the artwork that you're doing with her. I've actually got Sky's back. He's because he's been traveling around with Peta. He's been like hotel surfing, if that's a thing, and the Wi-Fi really let him down, but he's on his MiFi now, so we're going to drop him back in now, and he can tell us what he's been up to, or what plans he has, should I say, for the rest of the month, and then we can close the interview. But thank you, Joe.
Yeah, cool. Loved it, Joe. Fantastic.
So hopefully he's
Okay.
There he is. Robbie's back.
Sorry, life. There's a storm in Tampa, and the hotel does not have internet all of a sudden. So now I'm on my little MiFi device now. So hopefully everything will work out fine.
Well, we've got you back just as we're closing, so that's good. So you get to make the closing remarks.
Wonderful.
I think
I'm glad I've had such a contribution.
No, you were brilliant at the beginning anyway, so don't you worry.
Absolutely.
Nicely for quite a long time. But just for the benefit of people watching, about what you're doing. What are your plans for the remainder of Veganuary, I suppose? What are you up to?
Well, I two things, of course. Like I am on the Hell on Wheels tour still, and I am going around the Gulf Coast of Florida, and I'll come back on the other side, all the way down to Key West, and then back up the Atlantic coast, visiting chicken restaurants and downtown areas, letting people know what happens to chickens. So that's my main day job, so to speak. But also my YouTube channel, I've got a lot going on there. Every morning I do the pre-shift, which is a way for activists to kind of get on the same page. I wanted to have a way for people to just like a morning ritual. Hey, we're going to do a vegan word of the day. We're going to do a vegan birthdays. What is the national holiday today? That type of stuff. And, talk about vegan news and how we can get involved and what kind of activism can we get excited about. I look at a couple press releases that are happening, it's kind of like your little vegan news, daily news thing. And I do that every day, Monday through Friday. And from any city I'm in, and it's pretty exciting. So it's at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
That's pretty cool.
Which I think is GMT -5, right?
Yes, on the East Coast, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
On the East Coast, GMT -5. And then in addition to that, I do the Vegan After Dark, which is something I do late at night. That's great because it's a real international audience, and it's more like, a lot of F-bombs, a little spicier content. It's a little bit meaner, and we look at content, and we react to videos. We talk, kind of talk trash about other stuff that's happening in the vegan world. And then on Sunday we have Vegan Sunday School, where it's come on, come one, come all. Anybody can come on and talk about what's happening in their audacious vegan lives, and anybody can come on the stream with us and kind of have a conversation about what's going on. That's really exciting because we have vegan musicians, vegan activists, vegan entrepreneurs, all sorts of people. The only rule is that you got to be vegan to come on the show, and it's a good time. I do that one with the co-host named Fanulous, who's a really fun person to check out.
Yeah, she's going to be a guest on our next show, I think.
She's great.
Yeah.
The thing I like about your channel as well is how active it is when you go onto the show and you can see everybody kind of interacting with each other. I'm fairly new to this podcast, Lark, but how you manage to keep looking at the Zoom camera whilst seeing all of these messages and then pull out quotes is beyond me. It's a real talent. You've got a real gift.
We'll learn, Scott, as we go on.
We will. I'll just be charmingly Englishly rubbish, I think is my.
Well, you guys are doing live when you're live and you're doing it's just, you get used to it, right? And then but what's great about that is I just try to remember that the community is what I'm trying to be a part of. I knew that when I started doing content, even though I've been vegan longer than most people in that community, it's an existing community that I was joining. And if I want to be a voice that's worth hearing in it, and I think that I've got a decent point of view on some things that I want people to hear, I know that I've got to really cater to them and know that what they're saying is actually, and how they feel is what's important. I'm a guest in this community, and I'm helping build it now, but it was here before I got here. It'll be here after I'm gone too.
Bless you both. I know it's very late for Joe. Thank you both so much for being, our first guests on our first Sunday joint show. And carry on doing what you're doing, because it's working. So thank you very much. Bless you.
I want to say thanks, Scott, and good luck, and good to you for starting another podcast to create awareness. And all the best for, hope it grows and beats Sky's followers. And well done, and best of luck for it.
Yeah.
So from the UK to Cape Town to the East Coast of the States, it's goodbye, good night, good afternoon, whatever it happens to be.
Cheers, Richard. Nice to see you.
Take care. Bye-bye now.
Oh.